County, the Metropolitan Police, as well as Metro Transit Police. So I'm going to start out just with some brief introductions, and I'll start with our Deputy Chief, Shabu Philippos.
Hey, good evening, everyone. I'm glad to be here. I'm glad to see everyone here. I know we have a lot of concerns tonight. Just a little bit about myself. If you don't know me, I joined the agency in 2022 and carry the role of deputy chief. I'll turn it over to Captain Evans. You're muted.
All right, well, why don't we move on? We have also joining us from the police department. We have our emergency preparedness manager, Mark McInerney, is on the call.
Hi, good evening, everyone.
We also have from our code enforcement section, Rick Baravecchia to answer any code enforcement questions. And I think lastly, we have our public information officer, Kathy Plevy, who's on but not on camera. And lastly, if he's able, we have Captain Cody Evans joining us as well.
I fear everybody sorry for a mistake earlier. Captain Cody Evans, Operations Commander.
All right. I know we have allied partners from various agencies. I'll start with the Prince George's County Police. If representatives on the Prince George's County Police want to go ahead and introduce themselves.
Hey, good evening. Thanks for having me. I'm Lieutenant Canella. I work out of the Hydesville district, and I'm happy to hear any questions and concerns, and I will provide my contact information in the inbox.
And good afternoon, Captain Benson. I'm the Patrol Operations Commander for our Hydesville District.
Thank you, Captain. Anybody else from Prince George's? All right. How about our partners at the Metropolitan Police Department?
Everyone, my name's Captain Jessica Hawkins. I am one of the 4th District captains overseeing patrol operations here in the 4th District.
Thank you, man. Anyone else from Metropolitan? All right. Metro Transit Police.
Yep. Good afternoon, everybody. My name's Aaron Donald. I'm our District 1 commander that oversees the Takoma Metro Station.
All righty. Did I miss anyone of our allied partners? All right. So the goals for tonight is what we wanted to do was just start out with some brief overviews from each of our agencies represented. So we'll go ahead and start out. Captain Evans is just going to give a brief overview of some crime in Ward 3, the area that we're focused on. And then we'll open it up to the other allied agencies to give an opening statement or whatever they may want to say. And then what we most importantly, we want to open it up to Q&A with the residents, just concerning how we work collaboratively as agencies and crime specifically in this area that has various jurisdictions that all have responsibilities in this particular area. So with that, I'm going to turn it over to Captain Evans, just give a brief overview of kind of crime in Ward 3, which your area falls in, and then we'll turn it over to the other allied agencies.
Thank you, Chief. Hey, Mark, if you could just bring up the PowerPoint. Thank you. Can you go to the next slide? Hello, everyone. We're going to go over the PowerPoint for Ward 3. And first, we're going to look at our Part 1 crimes. If you could look at our arsons for the months from January to now in July, we had 0. Same with assaults. For burglaries, we had 3. For arsonies, we had 2, 1 in March, 1 in April. Rapes, we had 1. Somebody might, if somebody could mute their mic. Anybody on this line, just check your mic and mute it, please. Thank you. For stolen vehicles, we had a total of 3. And auto theft, we had a total of 15. Next slide, please, Mark. This slide is Ward 3 versus the rest of the city with Part 1 crimes. For homicides, Ward 3 represented 0%, and for rapes, it represented 50%. Being that we had 2 rapes in the whole city, 1 equals 50%, so the net numbers might seem a lot, but we only had 2 within the whole city. Robberies, 1 represent 13%, assaults 0%, burglaries 14%, and larcenies 3%. Theft from autos 13%, auto thefts 11%, arson 0%. Ward 3 represented 10% of these crimes within the city. Next slide. Part 1 vehicle crime overview from January through June. Stolen vehicles 28, theft from auto 28, and the total was 131. So for Ward 3, we had 3 stolen vehicles, auto thefts was 14, and a total of 17 from that span from January to June, which only represented 13% of the, thank you, Mark, which represented 13% of the crimes for the city. Next slide, Mark. Vehicle vandalisms. If you can see, the month of May, we had an uptick to 31, but you see a slight decrease from 31 to 16, and hopefully we will continue that trend. So you can see the month from January to June, and you see in May we had 31, and we see a significant decrease. Next slide. Vehicle vandalism overview from January to June. The 3 most affected vehicles in the city in 2026 have been Honda Civics with 24 incidents, Honda Accords with 12, Honda CRVs, Honda HRVs, and Honda REVs, each with 5 incidents. Honda vehicles encompass 40% of all vehicle vandalisms incidents, and is followed by Toyota vehicles at 18% of the vehicles of vandalism. As of June, 119 vehicles have been damaged, and Ward 3 represents 14% of these type of crimes. Next slide. And right here, you see an overview of map of Ward 3 and vehicle vandalisms. And these are the 2 areas where we have repeated offenses. 6900 block of Allegheny Ave and the 6900 block of Sycamore Ave. Next slide. Stolen motor vehicles. As of June 14, vehicles stolen originally in Takoma Park have been recovered. 10 of these recovered have been occurred in outside the jurisdictions. Additionally, 13 vehicles stolen outside jurisdiction have been recovered in Takoma Park. 3 recovered in Ward 1, 4 in Ward 2, 1 in Ward 3, and 5 in Ward 6. Next slide, Mark. Next slide, Mark. So Ronald Contreras, our crime analyst, does a great job of getting data from outside agencies, accumulating it and using it for our agency so we can see current trends and things that are happening. So sometimes when we have upticks in crimes, that's a regional trend. And so we monitor that data, talk to our allied agencies, and see what we could do to set off onsets of crimes that we see happening within our area. Next slide, Mark. Auto part thefts. So this is a lot of information. So Ward 1 accounts for 36% of all auto part thefts. As of July, there's no reported airbag thefts in Ward 3. All reported thefts involve Honda vehicles and Honda Civics, accounting to 50% of all cases. The regional coordinator with neighbors agencies indicates suspects are likely operating across multiple jurisdictions, traveling from Silver Spring area throughout Takoma Park to Prince George's County, and investigation is ongoing. Next slide, Mark. So this is the vehicle that Prince George's County Police Department has identified. Takoma Park experienced 4 airbag thefts in April. The first being 9 deaths reported between May of 28 and May of 29, followed by 3 vehicle thefts. April 28th to April 29th, followed by May 1st, 10 thefts occurred between May 13th and May 15th. Similar airbag thefts reported in 3D Silver Spring, along with PG suggesting possible same suspect. Next slide. This is what we caught in our area, in our jurisdiction, with one of our camera trailers that we use to help prevent crime and be a deterrent. The footage has been recovered. The airbag thefts occurring in May 14, 2026, the 700 block of Cheney Drive at 0130 hours. These are the vehicles that we caught on video, and they get out the car real quick. They came to Cheney Drive, got out the cars, stole airbags, and got back in the cars and left. At this time, there's no additional information for the airbag thefts, and this is an ongoing investigation. Next slide. And that's the end of our slide.
Thank you, Captain Evans. That was just a general overview. I know some of the things we're concerned about that were not on that PowerPoint were some of the recent firearms incidents we've had in Ward 3, and we'll discuss that as well. I noticed that we were joined by our mayor, Talisa Searcy. Welcome, Mayor. And we are also, as Councilmember Schlegel, who represents Ward 3, also joined us as well. I'm now going to turn it over to the Prince George's County Police if they want to say something brief about that, some of the crimes they've been experiencing in their adjoining area in Hyattsville, and then we'll turn it over to the other allied agencies.
Good evening, everyone. Thanks for having us, and thank you for the community for inviting us as well. I'm Lieutenant Canella out of Hydesville, and we are experiencing similar trends with the auto thefts and just increase in thefts in general, as well as the airbags. It's something that we're working closely with our task force for auto thefts and communicating with Takoma Park to address. And I'm confident us working in partnership will hopefully be able to get our numbers on a downtrend. And I just want to add, I don't see a chat box, but I want to share my contact information because you guys are our eyes and ears for everything. So let me see. I'll share with the Captain Evans so he can share it with everyone else on the meeting. But if you have any follow-up questions, I'll be happy to address them.
LT, you can also throw it in under your name if you want to as well. That's what we did in a prior meeting. We couldn't find the chat, but if you want to throw it in where your name is, people can see it that way as well. But we'll also share any contact information from anyone that's on this meeting with the follow-up for the meeting. All right. Thank you very much, LT. Metropolitan Police.
Obviously, it is one of those things that we work together. Of course, if you call for help, we'll help, and vice versa. So I do want to establish that we do have a great relationship with everyone here, especially Metro Transit. We during the school year with Coolidge High School. For those that don't know, Coolidge is on 5th Street, just south of that Eastern Avenue border. And what we noticed, a lot of the high school students after school, 3:30 in the afternoon, they start making their way to that Takoma Metro, and that's where our partnership really shows with Metro Transit. It's a little bit of chaos going from the school to the Metro, as you can imagine. You have about 1,500 students, going that way. They get on the train, and fights break out, things like that. One of the things I want to share with everyone here is, here at MPD, obviously you guys very similar to us. You're very transparent in showing the stats and showing stuff. And one of the questions is, how do we know what's going on in DC? And I'm sure that's a question on a lot of people's minds. First, we have our community outreach or our community meetings. We have a Sector 1 meeting, and that's the area that this is in. The border, Takoma Park borders Sector 1 of the 4th District. Those meetings are every second Thursday at 7 p.m. It's online. You're more than welcome to join and pitch in. Although you're not a DC resident, you're still welcome to join. You're a close neighbor. The other thing is, if you don't want to wait the whole month and you want to see what's going on in DC, you can simply go to crimecards.dc.gov, or you could just Google DC crime cards, and it's a very interactive system. You just put in, I want to explore whatever, all crimes, and it's already preloaded for you. And you could put in PSA 401. You could customize it, and it's going to tell you all of our violent crime and property crime, homicide, sex abuse, assault with dangerous weapon, robbery, and our property crimes such as burglary, auto theft, theft from autos, and arson, as well as regular thefts. So you can get that information by going to the DC crime card. You can put it in. The address I would suggest everyone using, because you can make it custom anywhere from 500 feet up to 2,000 feet, or PSA 401, and you'll see all this if you play with the system. But the address I used is 327 Cedar Street, and I'm sure the captain from Metro Transit knows that address because that's the address for Tacoma Metro, the Tacoma Metro station. From there, you can actually see a map of all the crime, and you can actually get a little more detailed incidents there. So that's a tool that we provide our citizens, and of course, anyone visiting the city or wants to know what's going on. Again, that's DC crime cards, and then you can, at the top banner, it'll show you how to navigate those different areas. But for the most part, we're PSA 4 or PSA 401, which stands for Patrol Service Area. All right, I think that's all I have for now. I think there was one more question that Captain Evans brought up earlier this afternoon, and that is there's been an issue about group homes in DC that have spilled over into, our residents from the group homes might have spilled over into Tacoma Park. Those group homes they're not in our purview. Those are private owned homes and they get funding, whether it's DYRS, which is the Department of Youth and Rehabilitative Services. They're placed there by court order. Those are kids who are usually in trouble for carjacking, robbery, or theft, or whatever the charge may be. And that's a group home that they're placed in lieu of jail or detention center. I'm sorry, they're juveniles, so it would be a detention center. Other group homes we have are placed there by CFSA, and that's Child and Family Services Agency, and that is mostly kids who've been awarded a state up to age 21. So we don't have a lot of authority over that. If they run away from home, it's a missing person report. That's about the most problem we have there. And then the other group homes we have are for mental health consumers. And again, these are all private homes. They're single family homes, and they basically bring in 5 or 6 residents, and they'll have a counselor on site just to kind of make sure everybody gets in and out okay, and keep them fed and things like that. So to my knowledge, I think we have 3 in that area.
Thank you very much, Captain. That was very helpful. And last but not least, Metro Transit Police, if you just want to give a brief overview, maybe I know there were a couple incidents on Metro property, one that transitioned over into Tacoma Park. So I don't know if you want to touch on those incidents and just give a brief overview of your collaboration with the other agencies.
Yeah, absolutely. So as Captain Hawkins was talking about, we do have a great relationship with all the partner allied agencies on this call. Again, shout out to Captain Hawkins. We do have a lot of school fights, unfortunately, at Tacoma that does spill over from the school, but we do work with DC schools as well as MPD and Tacoma for that matter for if we get any intelligence that the kids have been fighting in school and they're expected to be fighting at the station. We try to upstaff and try to keep order as best as possible. Just as a whole, some quick numbers. So last year was Metro's lowest crime year, pretty much in the history of Metro. This year we've continued that trend, and we're about 13% less than where we were at last year. The Tacoma Metro station so far has seen 5 serious violent crimes year to date. That includes robberies, aggravated assaults. Every crime obviously is serious. I will say the good news is that every single one of those crimes has either been closed out by arrest or we do have warrants pending for those suspects. So we do have about a 100% closure rate on those. The reason for that is largely due to our partnership, one with the allied agencies on this call, but also with the citizens. So for those who don't know, Metro is made up of about 30,000 cameras. As soon as a citizen notifies us of a crime, we pretty much have a real-time crime center that monitors those incidents. So as soon as we are notified of a crime, our video evidence unit immediately pulls up images of those suspects and disseminates that to every police officer on the agency and then also our partner agencies. So that helps us to close out cases very quickly if we're not able to stop them then and there when they occur. In addition to that, if you think about the Metro, it's kind of like a closed system. Once somebody is in the system, they have to exit out somewhere. So we're able to track people through our videos, through a bunch of different other techniques that once a crime occurs, we are able to kind of put the trap down to make an apprehension, and that has proved very successful. But we do partner with all these agencies through the Real-Time Crime Center, through our own personal contacts, and that has proven very successful over the last couple of years.
Thank you very much. That's very helpful. I just before we get into Q&A, I just really want to stress the collaborative efforts between all the agencies, not just the agencies represented here, but also we also the Montgomery County Police as well here in the city of Takoma Park. And that's really important. We've had multiple cases that have been solved across multiple jurisdictions because of this collaboration. So for the sake of time, I'm just going to go open it up for Q&A. If you have a question you would like to ask, if you could just put your hand up, we'll go around just to the various people on the screen. I don't see any hands up. If someone just wants to chime in, go ahead.
I have a question. Thank you all, first of all, for doing this call, and thank you for all of your work that you do every single day. Very much appreciated. Really quick question about, thank you. You just talked about the Metro stuff, and this is geared towards Metro, but really everyone. The response and the closure rate on the crimes at the Metro, awesome. Love it. Curious if you could talk a little bit about prevention, because I have to say, after hearing all of these incidents at the Metro, I don't feel comfortable allowing my high schooler to leave or return to the Takoma Park Metro. So I'd love to hear about what we're doing in terms of prevention. I have a lot of other questions, but I'll start there.
Yeah, absolutely. So one of the things that we've done, we've contracted with Allied Security. They are armed security guards. We have placed them at a bunch of our stations to help provide a little bit of extra eyes and ears, and also a visible deterrent, to help stop some of that disorder. They have our police radio, so if they encounter an incident that's, something that they can't handle themselves, they notify us. So at Tacoma, that was especially one of the stations where we had security guards present. They primarily were on the platforms of the station, and sometimes the fights would occur in the bus bay in the station, so they would have to come out of the station and kind of intervene into the bus bay. In addition to that, our youth services division has paid the Tacoma Metro Station a lot of visibility to try to give us some additional resources out there outside of our patrol element. And then additionally, like we were talking about before, our collaboration with, DC Police and DC School Resources has helped to try to give a little bit more visibility at Tacoma. I am by no means saying that it's, the perfect place to be, but we are trying as best as we can to make it the safest place that we can.
And are the extra security people there, is that all the time or at certain times of day or certain days of the week? How does that work?
So generally it's Monday through Friday. They do rotate. For a while during the school year, we did have them permanently assigned to the station, but now that it's summertime, they have been redistributed throughout the system.
Thank you.
Yes, ma'am.
And Bridget, just both the allied agencies as well. And in response to, we had a shooting in our jurisdiction close to the metro station. Have also increased patrols, both Metropolitan Police and our agency. So it's a kind of a collaborative effort. So you're going to see a lot more uniform presence in and around the metro station as well. Any other questions? Looks like Laura, I'll go to you. I see you with your hand up. Laura Peets.
Sure, thank you. And I'm sorry, I'm at the pool. My kid has a swim lesson, so apologies for the audio. We are the unlucky family who had our Honda Accord stolen from Allegheny Avenue in May. And we really appreciate the responsiveness of Takoma Park. We showed up in the morning after sleeping at night and it was just gone. The only thing we found was the disassembled lock in the street and, no other evidence. And by dinner time, PG County called us and had apprehended some juveniles who had been in a high-speed chase with the police and totaled the car, which was very unfortunate for everyone involved. And now we're dealing with the juvenile justice system, and it's all really awful and yucky and is hugely time-consuming. My question is, why are they going after?
This is
Laura, you dropped off. But I think the question may have been why are they going after Hondas? Are you back
Why are
with
they
us?
going after Hondas? Yeah, can you hear me?
I can hear you now. Yes, ma'am.
Okay, so why are they going after Hondas and how are they stealing them, if you know? Because we like to avoid this happening in the future for ourselves and other households who are Honda families. We now have a Faraday box for our keys. Is the wheel lock going to help? What's going to be a deterrent?
Yeah, thank you. That's a great question. I'll turn it over to the deputy chief. We just had a meeting last week where he spoke in depth kind of about the Hondas and some prevention.
Sure. Yeah, the Hondas and Toyotas are very popular amongst everyone. If you look on our roadways, that's what you'll see driving down the road. Um, and because of their popularity amongst the general public, they're also popular amongst the thieves, and they pretty much made it an art form to be able to steal those cars. So they're practiced on Hondas, they're practiced on Toyotas, and they steal them very, very rapidly. We had a situation some time ago with Hyundai Elantras. There was a specific way to steal a Hyundai Elantra using a pretty much a charger for your cell phone. And Hyundai and Kia, to combat that, they given out steering wheel locks. Steering wheel locks are a great deterrent for all vehicles to protect it from theft. It basically is a bar that goes across your steering wheel and locks. Um, it's very difficult to remove without the key. So we don't have any more steering wheel locks now, but we did have a steering wheel lock giveaway. I want to say a few months ago, where we gave out about 500 steering wheel locks. So to answer your question, that is a very primary way to prevent vehicle theft. You can also, of course, get car alarms. There's other safety measures, parking in well-lit areas, etc., that can also serve as deterrents. But the best way to prevent it right now is obtaining a steering wheel lock and placing it on the vehicle.
And
Thank you.
one additional just a recovery device we have is we have towel mates, which are
Right.
tracker devices that we're giving away to residents. We've had multiple giveaways, and we've been doing some of those giveaways in the near future. What that does is you can place that towel mate in your vehicle. If your vehicle is stolen, you can track the vehicle and then tell us where it is to be able to recover it. That's helpful as well. Looking at the screen, it looks like Alex, you have a question, and then we'll move on to Gene.
Thank you, Chief Duvall. I'd like to know what the view is or the activities that are being undertaken by Takoma Park Police Department and your allied agencies as it relates to some problem areas that exist close to where I live, which is down on the Eastern Avenue, New Hampshire Ave border. Specifically, from a novice's perspective, the intersection at Ethan Allen or 410 and New Hampshire Ave, as well as the intersection of Eastern Ave and New Hampshire Ave, are basically open air drug markets. And sometimes there is evidently like sex trafficking. And that issue has spilled into Takoma Park pretty significantly. If you go back almost a year to the day, I mean, to the week, we had 2 overdoses within a block of my house. And that week, everybody in the community saw the issue, which was that there was drug distribution occurring likely behind the McDonald's on the Prince George's County side. And, everybody in that community knew that distribution was occurring. And several people died as a result. And we, as our neighbors, had to be on text chains to tell people which way to exit because it takes several hours, as everybody here knows, to get a deceased body cleared to be moved from where they, passed away. And it was a pretty grim thing to have to live through. There was also another overdose that occurred just up New Hampshire Ave at the same time. And if I was a betting man, if I were to aggregate the data, which I did look at, and it is significantly delayed, but if I were to look at the data from a year ago of that week of Prince George's County and DC and Takoma Park, it is pretty clear that we had a significant drug problem and it is not addressed. Like I could go down right now within a block of my house to any one of those locations and score. And there is almost no police visibility at all, ever, which leads me to believe that there is a decision that has been made not to enforce whatever the state or jurisdictional policies are around drug distribution or the sex trade. And so I'd really like to know how the jurisdictions that are on this call view this problem, because it is a cluster problem. The data for the problem in the area gets buried across 2 or 3 jurisdictions. And as a result, it's not lighting up your heat map, but it is very much lighting up ours. And so I just would really appreciate both, Chief Duvall, your view on this issue, as well as Prince George's County and the District of Columbia's representation.
Alex, I absolutely appreciate that. The incidents last year you mentioned, there was a not just here locally, but regionally, there was a bad batch of heroin that was out, and that caused a lot of overdose deaths. That's not to downplay the existing problem. We are aware of the drug activity, both the 2 areas you mentioned, Eastern Avenue and New Hampshire Avenue, as well as the intersection of Ethan Allen and New Hampshire. And we as a department are trying to deploy as many resources as we can, not only our police resources, but also we have Rick Baravecchia, our code enforcement, who leads our code enforcement, who's also addressing some of the quality of life issues that are there. We work very closely with Prince George's County. It is very challenging in that particular area because a lot of the criminal activity transverses between either the District of Columbia or Takoma Park or into Prince George's County. We are doing all we can to, within our little area of that, to not only address what's occurring on a daily basis, but also consult with our allied partners to make sure that if we make an arrest in Takoma Park, we also share that information with the District of Columbia and vice versa, Prince George's County. So I know we have our 2 counterparts. I don't know who wants to speak first, but I'll turn it over to the Prince George's County or DC to kind of talk about how they're addressing that type of crime.
Yes, we're well aware of the situation at the McDonald's. It's been ongoing, like you mentioned, for some time now. The issue, like the chief just shared, that we run into is we'll go, and once we're present, they go into DC or they go into Takoma Park, and then we have to coordinate well with our allied agencies in order to try to address this. And it's just an ongoing issue that we've been trying to deal with, and we've tried to work with the McDonald's as well. We've reached out to the owner of the McDonald's, trying to get an agent letter to enforce at least trespassing at the property. They haven't been very helpful with that, but we're trying on our end, and we'll continue our efforts with DC as well to try to combat it.
But I think, sorry to interrupt, and Alex, I don't know if you had a follow up, but I think that's the whole point of this call, right? Is that we're all like, at least I also live like right on the eastern, like I'm on the border of DC, PG, and DC. And every single crime that happens, we're told that there's complexities between DC, PG, and Tacoma, which I'm not going to pretend to understand the complexity of your work. And I'm sure there's a bajillion things that make it extraordinarily difficult. But how do we make it better? Because I'm starting to feel really defeated. I feel like there's a ton of crime that's not even reported because we know, well, they're just going to go into DC, and so we can't do anything about it. So why even call? And then my other question, which is follow up, is around youth policies. And if youth are committing crimes, that's the other issue. So if we can't even coordinate around the obvious drug market and the border of PG, Tacoma, and DC, and there's issues there, how do we fix that? Because this might all be data to you, but this is our life and our kids. And so I think we're all what do we do? How do we do that? We need help.
Yeah, no, I completely agree with you.
Yeah,
go ahead, Chief. Yeah, I was just going to say, I live in the county as well, and I don't live far from that area, so it impacts me as well. And it's an ongoing issue that we're combating, and it's something that we have to raise up to our delegates and council members to really help us address these issues as well.
I do want to say one thing that's really important is that the jurisdictional issues with the District of Columbia aren't the same as we have with Prince George's County. Prince George's County Police, as well as the Tacoma Park Police, have full jurisdiction in the state of Maryland to pursue offenders into Prince George's County and vice versa into Tacoma Park. The challenges we have specifically with the District of Columbia is we don't have an MOU. So for minor offenses, we cannot cross the border into the District of Columbia, and vice versa, they can't come into Maryland. So if we're looking at things we can to correct or help us, would be to develop an MOU with the District of Columbia. We, the city of Takoma Park, have tried to do that. Ran into some loopholes with that. But if you really want to advocate in a meaningful way for cross-border crime, specifically in that area, it is to advocate for developing MOUs between the Metropolitan Police Department and not only the Takoma Park Police Department, but also the Prince George's Police Department, would allow us to have some more fresh pursuit abilities when crimes occur. So if someone walks from Prince George's County into Takoma Park after they commit a crime, they can come into Takoma Park, and vice versa, we can go into Prince George's County. But if someone commits a drug crime or minor crime in the Maryland into versus into DC, our officers, Prince George's nor Montgomery or nor Takoma Park, can go into the district to make apprehension for minor offenses. I do want to stress, Bridget, that we've have some success stories. We have had incidents where we've made arrests that are cross-border crimes. We had a year or so ago, we had multiple robberies of the food trucks along New Hampshire Avenue. We were able to work with Prince George's County. We were able to work with Montgomery County and make apprehensions. We made an arrest that led to arrest for an individual that was responsible for multiple offenses, both in Montgomery County and in Tacoma Park. So there are some success stories. But the biggest challenge I see, and I know we haven't allowed DC to speak on this issue, would be in this particular area, the ability, because of the district in Maryland jurisdictional issues, to be able to address those crimes in real time. And I'll allow Captain Hawkins. I just want to give her. Can we give her an opportunity
Yeah,
just to speak in
sorry.
that? Yeah.
First of all, I want to say absolutely, Chief. You're right. We do have a jurisdictional nightmare when, we're dealing with misdemeanor charges or, non-serious offenses going back and forth over the line. One of the things that we have is our mass overdose. And that for us, that's more than three. If we have three or more people who have a mass overdose in the same area, we refer that to our violent crime suppression division, specifically our narcotics enforcement unit. They'll make the decision whether they investigate further. So in a situation where I forgot who was mentioned earlier, but everybody's just kind of falling out. If that's a situation where we have three or more people that have suffered an overdose, that's when we investigate it, and that becomes there's so many other charges we start looking at. So so if it's one person that has an overdose, typically we will respond. We'll administer Narcan, call the ambulance. They, either walk off or get transported. So no, we're not going to do a lot of follow up on that. I'll just be honest with you. We're not probably going to investigate much more than that. We have a call log that, we average about 80 calls per day just for my shift alone with the evening shift. So we don't have a lot to go on there. We also don't have a lot of cooperation from the person who had the overdose. But going back to if it was three or more, then that does prompt an investigation through our narcotics enforcement unit, which is citywide. They have a little more reach than we do. Also, we have our federal partners that you've heard about. We do have our special missions unit, which we have right here in the 4th District, and we have FBI, ATF, DEA, even the IRS police with that task force. And part of that was the auto theft that we were just talking about a little bit ago. We actually had a pretty significant closure a few months ago. You've probably seen Janine Pirro on the news. That came from our 4D auto theft unit, just working our cases, talking about cross-jurisdictional or people going over to Maryland and stealing cars and coming over to DC stealing cars. In a case like that, they actually built a pretty good case where people were stealing high-end cars, reventing them, getting new keys made, and it actually led to a significant arrest, and including arrest with the FBI all the way down to Atlanta, Georgia, and all in parts of Virginia. We actually did a search warrant with our partners in Virginia not too long ago with the auto thefts. So that's something we are proactive when the crime presents itself, but not everything is a crime that we investigate. And we, we have partner agencies that work with that department. Behavioral health is one of our big ones. We rely on them and we tax them with so much to do. And the biggest thing is overdose and, those individual overdose cases and wherever we're having a problem. So it's not that we ignore it, it's just where hands are tied when it's just a singular overdose here and there. As far as enforcement, we do have a pretty robust presence. I know you don't see it a lot of times. That, like I said, it goes back to the evening officers who are going call to call to call to call to call for service. However, when they're not on call for service, we have certain areas we put them in based on statistics and crime, sounds of gunshots. If we start right now, we have a lot of sounds of gunshots on Kennedy Street, a little further in. So we have officers stationed there and they stay there for a little while until they get the next call, which is probably only about 5 or 10 minutes, and they're on to the next call. So we do take the overdoses serious, but for our threshold, it's usually 3 or more.
Chief Duvall, I just want to say, if I'm sure everyone on this call would be more than happy to make a phone call or write a letter in support of whatever you need in terms of an MOU between DC and Takoma Park, because this is my number one issue right now. And I think I'd also ask that Roger and Mayor Searcy, please, if you could also do anything you can to help encourage that MOU, because right now I would tell everyone never to live on the border between two jurisdictions in this area. It is a nightmare. And it's scary, to be honest. So I'm sorry. I will
No,
take
that's
a break,
fine.
but I'll probably be back.
No, understood, Bruce. I appreciate that. And there's a long history going back to 2018 with our request to attempt to get an MOU with the District of Columbia. And Mayor Cersei, I'll allow Mayor Cersei and Councilmember Schlegel to get some background and their opinion. Go ahead,
Yeah.
Mayor Cersei.
Well, thank you so much. I understand how frustrating this is, and it has been a long-standing issue. I know that I've had conversations with Mayor Bowser about the possibility. I know that there's been some concern about, from a DC perspective, where does it end? Because they border a lot of jurisdictions that would like to have a similar connect, and I understand why, the district perhaps would not be open to having various law enforcement entities being able to come across various states and jurisdictions, being able to come in and out of the district. So I understand that. But I do think that the leadership in DC understands that we're dealing with some issues. They're experiencing things on their end, and they recognize that we're experiencing things as well. Hence, the allies that we have on the call right now, which is it's just helping us tremendously to make sure that we're able to move the needle forward in terms of addressing some of these longstanding issues. I do want to make sure that folks on this call, residents particularly, know that we will continue to be advocating and working with our political allies within Prince George's as well as DC to move to address some things here. One question I do have on the Prince George's County, you had mentioned working with some your delegates and your council members to try to push perhaps having that commercial property with having some security there. I think we've had some success in the past with Prince George's, particularly in the Takoma Langley Crossroads, with some additional support on the Prince George's side of University Boulevard. So you mentioning that just kind of gave me an idea of some folks that we can call to try to do something similar in this case, where perhaps having some on-site security will also help to be a deterrent from people, because I frequent that area as well, and there are people, you can't even go through the drive-through without someone coming up to your car. So if you just work with us to kind of give us an idea of who do I need to gently nudge in the Prince George's on the Prince George's side to make sure that we're able to make some headway, particularly as it relates to this parcel that's in question.
Sure. We recently had elections, so it'll be someone new coming forward, but I'll share that with you.
That would be great. And I understand there's elections across the board, which also could be helpful, but it also could be a little difficult until we're able to identify who's going to be in which seat. But again, we're committed to making sure that we're able to get some traction as well. So
Councilmember Slagle, did you want to?
Sure, yeah, and Bridget, I'm right around the corner from you, of course. Um, I just had two questions. I don't have a lot of intelligence about the MOU history, but for anybody on this call who might know, is the issue with an MOU with DC something to do with constitutional matters, that it's a federal territory, and so that to allow officers from other jurisdictions in, they would have to be deputized through some kind of chain of command that goes to Congress? That's my first question. And the other is, like, on a more granular scale with the cross-border stuff, are there any points of confusion about where the actual boundaries are, with knowing that Eastern Avenue plus 10 feet or so is all in DC? And then I know the chief and I have discussed how by charter the Takoma Park border extends to across the sidewalk on the other side of the street, but by custom it seems to end at the curb line on the Takoma Park side of the street with New Hampshire Avenue. I just wanted to ask, since we have all the three agencies here, about that as well.
To answer your first question, Councilman Schlegel, no, there's the issues are just whether or not it's approved. There are no congressional thresholds that need to be upheld or anything to that effect. And I'm not going to speak for the other agencies, but I think there's a clear understanding of what the cross jurisdictional borders are along that triangle that goes all the way down to East-West Highway. Right. I know we have some other questions. Why don't we go to Gene? I know you've had your hand up for a while.
All right. Yeah, my question is really more of a question, and it's not necessarily about crimes in progress, but something did happen last night that sort of exemplifies. I live literally on Eastern Avenue. If you go across my street to the curb, then you're in the District of Columbia. We used to be near PG, but once they they unified all of Takoma Park, the PG line is down at New Hampshire Avenue. But sometimes we just have a question and think we can't ask the Takoma Park Police because it's clearly happening in the District of Columbia, even though it's only a few feet from where we're standing. Last night, there was a very large sound of, we didn't know what it was. It was a big boom, and we didn't know what it was. And I think we figured out later on that it was probably some very big fireworks. I'm not talking about your little tiny fireworks. It was very loud. And then there were two. But sometimes something scary goes on. You just want somebody to check it out and tell us what it is. It might be important. It might not be. So I didn't think that being in Takoma Park, I could call the DC police and just say, can you tell me what that was? If it was fireworks, okay. It was a different kind of explosion. Someone else mentioned maybe a transformer. It could be anything. So that was a challenge to know whether, if we called our Takoma Park dispatchers, whether they would be able to do anything, even ask the DC police to look at it and see what it is. It's literally across the street from me, but it's in another jurisdiction. But then there have been times where, and we've been here for 40 years, so we predate probably most of the people on this call. And the MOU, I thought there was one in place many, many years ago, because they've been talking about MOUs for as long as we've been here. So I think it's time to either do something or to say there's nothing we can do and we never will be able to do anything about it, because it's pretty standard here that the Metro walkers get mugged and then the perpetrator, just literally crosses the street and goes into the district. but we have had some things where they have been caught, and I think the most serious one was a murder that happened here. I'm going to say 4 or 5 years ago. It was either during COVID or not long after, and the actual murder took place on the DC side on Walnut Avenue, but the car, because it was on a hill, rolled down across Eastern Avenue and down Walnut Avenue in Takoma Park, where it hit a tree and the driver died. And there was a passenger in the car. I believe they got them. Now, that's what I know, and I've heard informally that they did catch the perpetrator and that he was convicted. But we really need more information. We need to close that loop. A lot of times they are juveniles. We don't have to have the kid's name or where he lives or whose parents are or what school he goes to or anything like that. But I do think we deserve to close the loop when you arrest someone, regardless of where they come from. I mean, did they end up going to trial, and what happened? I mean, we have personal experience with a family member who was murdered in Virginia, and we know these things take time. It take time to go to trial and get a conviction and whatever. But I do think that somebody should tell, and again, I don't know who, whether it be the mayor's office or the police department, that then, Kathy, you've been great in listing the crimes that have happened in the various wards of Takoma Park, and that's very helpful. What we don't usually get is the outcomes of the trials of those people who are caught, and I think we deserve that. And you can protect the juveniles' identity and all that. You can say that a car was stolen and recovered, and a juvenile was arrested, and that he went to court in the District of Columbia or in PG County or in Montgomery County. To just let us know what happens, because there's been a lot of things that the case falls into a black hole. And here we are saying, well, hey, really, was it worth the trouble? Was it worth the time for us to report these things so that the perpetrators are caught? And then we also kind of get the feedback and the incentive and encouragement to keep our eyes open and let the police know when something's going on. So thank you.
Gina, I appreciate that. Was a lot. I'll try my best to answer a bunch of your questions, and I'll go back. So just in the city of Takoma Park, any high profile arrest that we make or conviction is announced. Kathy announces those. Even involving a juvenile, we just don't give specific information. The case that you mentioned on Walnut was not handled by the Takoma Park Police Department, so we don't have information on that particular case. Maybe offline, you can go direct with the DC representative to see if we can get some information, give her some more information, so she maybe can get some background on that case.
They were arrested in Takoma Park.
Yeah,
they were arrested on.
Yeah,
right,
we didn't handle the case. The case I think you're talking about initiated in the District of Columbia. We didn't know at the time where it originally started. We found out after the fact that it actually was a shooting that occurred in DC, not something that occurred in Takoma Park. So that wasn't, if it's the same case I'm thinking about, it wasn't handled by us.
Is there any way though to open up, it's very hard. The bureaucracy in Takoma Park is not nearly as bad as the bureaucracy in DC, even for DC residents, because I spend time talking to them and surveying them, right? But having a police department to police department liaison so that we could track things that are in our neighborhood in a different jurisdiction would help everyone. Because one of the biggest things that you guys have always told me was useful is it's very effective for us to be your eyes and ears. And so to do that, it seems that you want to facilitate people feeling there's some efficacy, some ability to get something done. So if there's a way that somebody in the police department could act as a liaison, so when something happens here, we can track it down so that we're all more effective.
We had a multi-unit house here on Takoma Park. I'm going back now about 25 or 30 years. And it was the crack house. I mean, it was not only were they using, they were selling. I mean, they had everything but a neon set sign out saying, buy your drugs here. And we knew about it for a long time because he kept reporting it. And they kept saying, yeah, we know about it. We're just waiting. We're gathering evidence. And a couple of days after Christmas, the big bust came. I mean, it was, paddy wagons and everything, and they hauled them all off. Well, for the longest time, we didn't know what happened. And that did go to Montgomery County. It was a Montgomery County task force that did the arrests, and it did go to court in Montgomery County. And I really wanted to know what happened, because as far as I know, those people were just going to come back, and so I don't have time to do this for every case, but in this particular one, I did bird dog it all the way down to the court, and I talked to the court and said, look, these people were a nuisance, and they were going door to door and begging for money, and they were doing a lot of things they shouldn't have been doing. And how do we know they're not, as soon as you turn them loose, they're not going to come back and do it again? And actually, the court told me they thanked me a lot. They said, we rarely get to hear from the impacted citizens. And by you saying this, we can make sure we can add some contingencies on their probation that they don't show up in your neighborhood. And if they do, they can be arrested. Well, I thought that was very helpful, but it was also helpful for us to know that it was worthwhile coming forward and saying, we watch these, because I understand with 40 calls a night, you don't have the time to get into the ancient history of every crime scene and everybody that's impacted. But I mean, I think we need to be engaged more. And if they say, like you said, this is the first I heard, is that Takoma Park actually didn't handle that, but it would be good to know who did handle it and what the contact information is, because there were a lot of witnesses to that. I was not one of them. I did see the aftermath, but when there is something to say or you want to find out, well, hey, what happened? They hauled those people off, but whatever happened?
Yeah,
I think we could do that.
I greatly appreciate that. And I'll just, for the sake of time, I'll touch on this real quick, and then we'll move on to other questions. We, the Tacoma Park Police Department, are best to report crime that occurs in the city, whether that be in real time, which Kathy does, or arrests that occur in the city. I don't think we are best placed to report out on crime that occurs in Prince George's County or the District of Columbia, and I think they would say the same. I think they have systems in place where you can sign up for crime alerts and so on and so forth that will help educate you. But I don't feel comfortable with having the staff of the Tacoma Park Police Department report out on crimes that have occurred in other jurisdictions. So the liaison, I understand the importance and desire to have that.
I wasn't implying that. I was implying that the crime happens here, but they either run into another jurisdiction or they get arrested here and we don't know what happened. I'm not talking about.
Yeah, just to be clear, anytime we make an arrest or there's an incident in Tacoma Park, it is put out publicly by Kathy. Even the aftermath, if someone is convicted, we put that out. So anything that has any nexus to an arrest made by the Tacoma Park Police Department, you will see on our social media. You will see if you sign up for our contact list. So if there's a particular incident that you have questions about that we didn't relay, I'd be happy to go offline and figure out what that incident was and see if we could get your information.
Okay. I don't have anything in mind right now. Thank you.
And I think there was one other question that you had. I don't remember it at the beginning, but I think it was just about who should you call if there's an incident. I recommend if where you live, if the incident is clearly occurring in the District of Columbia, you should call the District of Columbia. If it's occurring in Tacoma Park.
But who do we call? I mean, how do we're not citizens of the District of Columbia, so we don't have all those. I mean, I've been to the 4th District headquarters. I know where that is. But as far as calling to say, hey, there's a loud boom coming from across the street, can somebody tell us whether it's something serious or not? I don't know who I'd ask.
Yeah, we have the representative from DC. I don't want to speak for her, so go ahead.
All right, so the short answer is call 911 and the call will get routed to the appropriate agency. So if you're calling in Maryland and you're like, hey, I heard a boom over on New Hampshire Avenue in DC, the call taker and dispatchers, they have a great communication system, and they'll send that over to us, and we'll go and
So
investigate.
they can do it. Our 911
Yes.
can contact the DC. I didn't know that. Thank
Yep,
you.
absolutely.
All right. I know, Mercedes, you've had your hand up for a while, and then we'll go to Dan and Shanae.
Right. Hi. I just wanted to say that we have a lot of young families that live down here, New Hampshire and Eastern Avenue. And personally, I've gone down to our local park here, just walking down. It's a big thing to get the toddler ready to go and play, get all the stuff. And then I go and there's somebody selling drugs right there, smoking a cigarette right under the playground equipment. And we've had at right in front of that playground, there were some kids who came in. I guess it was on a scooter and were shooting guns at one time. I think one of the other people on this call saw that. And then the other time, maybe a year ago, 2 years ago, we came back to the house, and there were somebody had shot somebody, killed somebody on New Hampshire Avenue in a commercial area, and ran through our yards, and they found him right here on our house, right in front of my house, right here in my yard, and then they apprehended him there. So this is impacting real families, children. We're seeing this. He's seeing this. Just this MOU is so important. Our community here is diverse, and we've got a lot of young kids. And we want something to happen here. Okay, thank you very much.
Yeah, Mercedes, I'm really sorry to hear you've experienced that. That's just unfortunate. As I say to everyone, if anyone on the call observes criminal behavior, please contact us or Prince George's County or the district, whoever the responsible agency is. It's really important that we report that so we know. But yeah, it's unfortunate. All of our kids should be able to go to that playground. And Mercedes, I'm assuming you're talking about the Sligo Mill Neighborhood Park. Is that the park you're referring to, just for our understanding?
Yes, it's that park on Orchard and Fifth Avenue. Yeah.
Okay. Thank you. That's helpful. Dan on 4, you've had your hand up for a while.
Hey, Chief. First off, like, guys, I wouldn't want to be in your position at all. I appreciate what you do. I know your hands are tied on a lot of things. Crime is absolutely out of control. These kids are lunatics these days. They have no respect for law enforcement, no respect for elders or youth or anything like that. What has to stop now is this jurisdictional issues that we have. Crime in DC has been underreported. That's a fact. We know it's just as bad as it's always been, and it's stepping over into Takoma Park. I don't care what happens in DC anymore. I don't live there anymore. But once the crime hits my front door again, like it is here with shootings, once a week, we have text chains where we're back. We're like, where'd that come from? Oh, don't know. Who's doing anything about it? Nobody's doing anything about it. Takoma can't go to DC because they're afraid of Mariel. PG doesn't want to come over here because it's too far. Montgomery County cops, it's way too far for them. Metro cops aren't here. There has to be something with this multi jurisdictional stuff. It's old. I'm sick of hearing about it. Make it happen. It's not our job to do it. It's mayor's jobs. It's cops' jobs. It's whoever, delegates, senators, Raskin, get them involved. That's like, we can push as many buttons as we want to get, and attorney general involved in this. I'm done hearing about it. It's got to happen. If somebody shoots a gun off in front of my house and runs into DC, Takoma Park can chase them down. We know who these kids are that are doing this. It's the same kids. And I'm going to keep going on this blast here. The McDonald's issue, all I heard is everyone knows it's happening and no one's doing a thing about it. You contact the owner of McDonald's, like, shut it down. Like stop it. Even the mayor says she can't go to McDonald's. I can't take my 4-year-old kid to McDonald's to get a Happy Meal because some crackhead or some prostitute is approaching me at the drive-thru after I pay for my stuff to pick it up. Like, I can't take my kid to McDonald's, and that should be a treat, a special treat. All right, so there's that one. And I'm sorry, my son just walked in here. The Metro security issue. Guys, we're really glossing over these Ally Security and these rent-a-cops. They don't do anything. They turn around, they walk away, they don't do anything. What I'm really missing is the good old cops beating the streets, walking the beat, hanging out, and that is the only thing that's going to move these kids on to the next stop or to get them to not to commit these crimes. When they think they can overrun a territory like Tacoma Metro, which they do, and how many shootings have been there in the past 2 months? You had a shooting on the bus, you had a shooting off the metro, you had shots fired when the kids run. Like it doesn't take a rocket scientist to figure out, just keep somebody there nonstop. Have Metro cops there nonstop. What else are you doing? Your job as a Metro cop is to stay at the Metro and be a cop at the Metro. That's all I care about. And if you know there's crimes at McDonald's, have somebody there all the time. If you know there's crimes all the time at Kansas and whatever, which I see DC cops there often, but if it's the same kids, do something about it. Just it's a full stop and do something about it. I mean, I don't know what else I have to say. What other point you have to make? But the full stop and just do something. Quit talking. This is the same conversation we've had for 5 years now. I will end with that.
Commander McDonald, do you want to touch on any of the Metro comments? And I'll leave it open to Prince George's since they mentioned the McDonald's.
Yeah, so for the Tacoma Park Metro, that is one of the areas of focus. As Captain Hawkins was talking about before, we do deploy based off of our statistics and where our crime data is showing. So we are trying to show Tacoma a little bit of extra love, especially during the school year. For this upcoming school year, I have already made a request for our youth services division to primarily staff that during morning and evening rush hour. So we should hopefully have actual police officers at the station during that time.
I know a couple other people have had their hands up. Janae, did you want to?
Yeah. Yeah, I just want to reiterate, Bridget, what she emphasized the MOU. We, like Bridget and Dan, live a block from Eastern Avenue, so we, and as well as Alex, a few others on the call as well, hear these gunshots, and it's been an issue in our neighborhood with kids. The last incident where I believe it was about a month ago on Kansas Lane. There were a group of young kids just firing, into the woods next to Kansas Lane on the Tacoma Park side, and then running towards DC. So in this situation, I know there was they recovered some of the bullets and so forth. This area in particular, as we've all mentioned, Kansas and Eastern is a problematic area. And we've continued to see incidents and gunshots, and just, it's a matter of time before someone's really, really hurt. So one thing I think we would like to see is some kind of camera at Kansas and Eastern that may be able to deter some of this activity, or at least pick up on it and put alerts out if these incidents are happening. And then with the incident that happened on Kansas several weeks ago, I know several people called the shots in, but then what's the process? I mean, is Tacoma Park Police Dispatch calling DC to say, be on the lookout? Because I feel like that should be happening, and I don't think that is happening, where there's coordination between the two jurisdictions. Because like Bridget said, and others have mentioned, a lot of this are people coming from DC into Tacoma Park committing crimes. And so I just wonder if there's that coordination, that immediate, like they get the call from residents saying it's like right at Eastern or right at the border, people are running into DC. Is there a coordination happening real time to notify DC police on that?
Yeah, I know the Deputy Chief Philippos did some research on that particular call. That should be the norm for incidents that occur along our border, is if something happens, the lookout is given to all adjoining jurisdictions. Deputy Chief, I know you looked into that particular call for service, the one on Kansas, and I think that there was a notification to make to DC. I think you're on mute.
Yes, we did respond out there and we did collect several shell casings. And I appreciate the photo that was shared with our officers. Our detectives are working with DC to identify those individuals. It is a very difficult thing when these cross-border crimes occur and these youth run across the border. And identifying them is a challenge for all of us, including DC, but we are working very closely together. Um, I will add on that shooting that occurred at the Metro, because of the collaboration we had with Metro and with DC, and especially the cameras that Metro has, we were able to make an arrest the very next day of the individual that fired that shot into two cars. And that juvenile was being held at a detention center. I don't know the results of the case yet, if it's been heard, but that individual was being held. Um, Additionally, we do have joint operations with DC, Prince George's County along the New Hampshire Avenue border. We do that about 2 to 3 times a year. Obviously, that's not an answer, and we probably need to do it more frequently, but that is something that we do jointly together. And it's a high enforcement, high visibility enforcement operation that occurs. It is, at times it's difficult to coordinate all three agencies to do that, but we will work on that from our end. I know Prince George's County is open to that, and we also work with Montgomery County along the border as well. So we will try to increase the frequency of those operations. And I know DC and Metro hasn't been on our operations, but we will definitely invite them to join us on those operations along New Hampshire Avenue, along that DC Eastern Avenue corridor.
And Deputy Chief, can you touch on the camera trailer? I know we had it deployed
Correct.
in that area after the most recent shooting. And I know Janae mentioned, is it still deployed there, or do we need to move it back in the area?
I believe we removed it, but we need to move it back into the area. Captain Evans manages that. But we do have 3 trailer cameras, or we call them pole cameras. They have a red and blue light on the top. They have 2 cameras. One is pointed at a fixed location. We can manage that. And there's another ball camera that rotates on a frequency, and it captures different images. It's not watched live unless there's an incident. And then someone can log in and watch live, but no one's sitting there watching it. It's really helpful for us to capture incidents and go back and look at the footage to see if we can identify suspects or identify vehicles, etc. Captain, do you know if it's located there right now?
It's at 4th and Eastern, and like the deputy chief says, it shows as a deterrent. And ever since we established camera back there, we have 3 cameras within the city that we move around for problematic areas, deter criminal behavior or for suspicious situations. We have a camera there right now, and ever since we placed that camera there, we have no further incidents.
Yeah, and I wonder, just confirming that there is a camera at Eastern and 4th Avenue that was placed probably about 3 or 4 weeks ago after the incident on Kansas. But for the DC MPD, is there any from their side? Could they put something like at Kansas and Eastern on the DC side that could kind of just be a reinforcement of in that area that's there where it tends to be problematic?
I'll answer that real quick. To put a camera up, we have the mobile trailer cameras. We do have stationary cameras throughout the city, but you're talking about a mobile camera trailer. Those are decided by the chief of police, and that's got to go through basically through our council member, our ANCs, through the commander, and up to the chief. We have to have data and everything that to back up why we want a camera there. It definitely is deserving of it, but it's a process. We can't just put one there. It's a process, and the chief of police has the authority on where it goes.
Can we help with that process? Are there things that we can do, letters we can write, people we can contact to help with that?
Yeah, we could talk about how, I mean, it's a lengthy, like I said, it starts with your ANC or the ANC in that area, the advisory neighborhood commissioner, and it goes up from there.
If we don't live in DC though, like,
Right. This is where it gets complicated. But yeah, I mean, you live on the border. And I mean, like when I talked about joining a sector meeting, you're always welcome to join. And I know the ANCs would welcome you as well. And we can get you that information, who the ANC is. I can send that to you, through email or something.
that would be great. Just and I'm skipping ahead of other people, sorry, but it's me again. I feel like we have a double issue where I live, which is not only the border issue, but we have an issue of youth committing these crimes. And it feels like every time I talk to people or, people come out and they're hopeful, but they're like, oh, they're under 18. Like, there's only so much we can do. Like, and they're going into DC. And so it feels like we're just sitting ducks. Like, we know that there is the same group of kids that come through our neighborhood and commit crimes, and then they go back into DC. We know they have a gun, and God forbid someone gets shot. Like my son, I understand, like I'm not trying to be dramatic here. My son was literally 20 feet away from 6 gunshots the other day. It's bad enough when they're a block away or this. I mean, that's bad enough. My kids don't even react to gunshots anymore. They just don't even react. They're like, oh, more gunshots. Like that's not normal. And I know you all like are doing like this is like your life's work to protect people. And I'm like incredibly grateful. I want to put like a human face to the data that you see and the things that you see every single day. Um, it's just, I don't know. It's so scary and so frustrating that these things are clear crimes that are happening that clearly we can do nothing about. And it feels extraordinarily deflating. And it makes us lose faith, which I don't want to do. Like every time I've called Takoma Park Police, they've come, they're great, they're wonderful, they're polite, they're kind, but they're like, their hands are tied. And that's awful. It's just an awful feeling.
One thing I do want to say is, I think we started going with this misconception. It's just because someone walks across the border that they escape justice. That's not true. There are still warrants. There's still, we get warrants. Whether it's extraditable or not is another question. But just because you commit a crime in Takoma Park, or if you commit a crime in DC, both police departments probably will make that investigation. If you shoot a gun in DC, and especially if it meets our criteria, it's called unlawful or reckless endangerment with a firearm. It's a felony. It's a 10-year felony, and we're going to investigate. And we find out if you're the one that shot that gun around people or something like that, and you put people's lives in danger. Then we're going to, investigate it. And if we figure out who it is, we're going to file for a warrant. And then we're going to put it in the crime system or the NCIC, which is available to every law enforcement agency in the land. And if you're picked up for that, you're going to get extradited back to DC and you're going to go to trial.
Even if you're under 18?
Absolutely. Even if you're under 18. Now, extradition, things like that, that's a different ball game. That now we're talking about two different prosecutors. One is our DC General or DC Office of Attorney General for prosecuting children or teenagers. And then we have the U.S. Attorney's Office that prosecutes all adult cases. And in some cases, if the crime is serious enough and that child is deemed an adult and can stand trial as an adult, then they'll get prosecuted by the U.S. Attorney's Office. That's different. That comes later down the road. But for the most part, I don't want someone thinking that just because someone commits a crime and walks across the street, that they got away with it. Maybe for
But that's what it feels like. I'm so glad to hear you say this, but that is exactly what it feels like. And I feel like whether it's reality or not, that is the perception and that is the message that we're hearing. And so as much as we can do to just tell us what happens, tell us who we can call, tell us what we can do. Like we are here to be helpful and supportive.
The first thing is absolutely first thing, if you see something, call 911. And yeah, it'll go to Takoma Park or Maryland. And the dispatcher there will immediately put you in touch with our dispatcher. Give us your info when you call 911 so we can communicate with you. Especially we have our federal task force. Now, we've had it where the federal agents do go across border and they can actually make a stop if the task force is working at that time. So we do have that benefit here in DC with the task force. They are, because they're federal agents, they can actually they can go across, they can go anywhere they want, and then they can make that stop. And we've actually had that happen not too long ago with a shooting we had here in the 4th District a couple months ago. So it's not a matter of no one's going to do anything. I'm sure Takoma Park is the same. It doesn't mean you got away with it. It just means we not might be able to stop you right now, but we will get you later if it meets the criteria for an investigation.
Yeah, and I'm glad the captain mentioned that because that's really important. When we're talking about the MOU, we're talking about real-time apprehension, not necessarily. We in the city of Tacoma Park have charged people that we know have either fled into the District of Columbia or other jurisdictions. That is not an impediment. I do not want to downplay in Maryland the issues with sometimes charging juveniles with crimes. We have had, with some recent law changes, it's very hard at times to charge juveniles under a certain age with serious crimes. And maybe, so I'm not talking, I'll defer to the deputy chief to discuss some of the complications or some of the issues we have charging juveniles, especially very young juveniles, with serious crimes.
Right. I think that's one of the biggest challenges that we as law enforcement face right now. And I think as a community, one thing that you can do is talk to the state legislatures to change the laws. The laws that were changed a few years ago, they changed it for the benefit of juveniles and for juvenile justice. But the unintended negative consequences of that was essentially tying law enforcement's hands in a lot of circumstances. Uh, right now, if we stop a juvenile for a crime, we can't question them about the crime. Right? We can handcuff them, we can take them to our station, but we have to call a number that's already set that goes to the state. I want to say the state attorney's office, but an attorney who represents that child. And what is that attorney going to tell us? To release the child. Right? So we cannot question them. So that produces a huge challenge for us. For example, if we stop a stolen vehicle and there's 4 youth in the car, we're able to arrest one of them. We can't ask them about the crime. We can't ask them about who else was in the vehicle with them.
I think this is absolutely insane, and I'm sorry that you have to deal with this. I think that is absolutely bananas, and I find this unfathomable, and I will be doing all I can. I don't know what I can do, but I will figure it out because this is insane. This is insane.
But Bridget, you've raised phenomenal points on this call. And having participated in these calls for 6 years, the sleight of hand that is being played by the multi-jurisdictional law enforcement professionals that are on this call to do 2 things. One, misdirect the issue by saying that it's multi-jurisdictional and therefore it's not able to be addressed. That's the first one. The second sleight of hand is the youth issue, which is a common one that people point to. The reality is the central issue, which you brought up in your first comments, is that when the residents of this affected area place a call in to any one of those jurisdictions, the issue is not taken nor weighted against its full merit as a function of its location because its location is complicated. In Takoma Park, I had in December something like 3 or 4 stolen cars were always getting dumped in an area that recently the DCOP Philibos described as my driveway. It's not. It's an intersection of Paper Street, Westmoreland, and Sligo Mill Road. There wasn't a single conversation that I had with a Takoma Park Police Department official or officer of any kind, despite the fact that I have camera footage of the people that were stealing and dumping these cars in essentially my front yard. Because those criminals were presumably going over to DC. I call on a weekly or bi-weekly basis over to the Prince George's County non-emergency line for a series of noise ordinances related to 3 businesses that are across the street. That is the smallest issue that's across the street. The larger issue is drug trafficking and sex trafficking. The law enforcement officers over there do nothing under the same argument that's been made from the beginning of this, which is that it's cross-jurisdictional. There's nothing they can do about it. DC police on the other side of Eastern has done nothing in 6 years as it relates to any of the issues that exist with the houses that exist on the DC side of Eastern border. A lot of that are unfortunately youth related, people that are living in the housing choice, high density, affordable housing programs that populate that neighborhood. But the reality is that any one of those jurisdictions could take up that issue if they so determined. They could take up any one of those criminal acts if they so chose, but they don't. And they don't do it because they use the multi-jurisdictional nature as a way to explain it away. And Bridget, if you want to see a camera on Eastern and Kansas, you have to just wait 12 months. Since I've lived in my house, within 12 months, there is a homicide. It has happened like clockwork. And if anybody wants to list, I can give you the list. Sometimes I called in drive-by, not a drive-by shooting, but aggravate road rage incident. That was a shooting of a motorcyclist at the top of Sligo Mill in Eastern. I called in the murder that was at Advanced Auto Place. There were two that happened last year, the scooters that were going from DC to the Mid-Atlantic Seafood. Every 12 months, there is a homicide. There is consistently actually a camera that is outside of the recreational facility that's off of Eastern on the DC side. But what is required to have that is somebody needs to get shot. And I think the challenge here with the residents that are on this call is that we're just telling you that these problems exist. There are actually many people have been shot. They aren't our children. The people on this call are not the people that have had their children shot. They're just the people who have had bullets in their houses. And as a result of the multi-jurisdictional dysfunction, we will continue to have this same conversation quarterly or once a year as we have for the last 5 or 6 years. The thing that needs to occur, which I have said repeatedly, is that the area needs to be evaluated as a hotspot, because every single one of your jurisdictions, they describe them differently. I know even Montgomery County Police, which isn't on this call, but has their own conception of a hotspot, has a way of assessing. And actually, the representative from DC mentioned it already with drug overdoses. You had a massive drug overdose issue in our neighborhood last year. And if I had more than 8 free hours in a day, I would pull that data from the three jurisdictions and I would show that to you. The law enforcement professionals on this call need to get in a room and get a bunch of interns and pull the data together to evaluate the area as a hot spot of high crime. And we're not the only one. Obviously, it goes up New Hampshire Ave to Takoma Langley, and DC's got its own problems. I used to live off of Kennedy Street here in DC in Ward 4. We all know these issues, but we are one of them. And it is a massive disservice to start a call with a PowerPoint presentation going through the number of car thefts that may or may not have occurred. It's just, it is a misdirection of the fundamental issue. And so,
Alex, I appreciate all you just said, but to try to insinuate that we are somehow trying to deflect, we are merely answering questions from residents specifically about topics. And those were specific questions about juvenile crime and our issues with charging juveniles, as well as cross-jurisdictional boundaries. To say that any jurisdiction on this call does not take crime seriously or does not respond when crime occurs, I think is a disservice. No one is trying to deflect. We're here tonight to listen to people. We provided stats at the request of some people that wanted this call. We wanted to give a specific overview of Ward 3. I understand the ongoing nature of this problem. But we're not trying to deflect. We're looking for solutions. And that's why my staff and staff from all these other jurisdictions are here. So I appreciate that you may think we're trying to deflect. We were answering specific questions about specific issues that, in my opinion, are part of the problem. And the inability to charge juveniles who do repetitive crimes in this particular area is a problem. The issues with the transient nature of the crime going from one jurisdiction to another is a problem. Now, is that the holistic problem? No, I agree with you that there is a larger, bigger issue that is in that particular area that needs more resources, whether that be policing, whether that be mental health counselors, whether that be crisis intervention. There's a multitude of things that we can do, and we are open to things that can mediate that. But I do want to be crystal clear that we are not here to try to deflect, and the crime stats nor anything else were meant to do that.
I appreciate your willingness to try and de-escalate the conversation, but your stats are being used to support an argument that in the context of the Takoma Park's police enforcement responsibilities, that this area is not an area that has that many issues with crime. And that is not true. And everybody on the call understands that. And I'm actually trying to help you, which is to say that if you want to bridge the gap with this community, then we need to be talking about these issues more transparently. And by starting the conversation and continuing through it and ending it under the perspective that, oh, there's an issue with a handful of use and we couldn't possibly get involved, or that it's multi-jurisdictional and those complicate issues. It's not true. We all know what the problems are. We haven't actually gotten an effective response from Prince George's County Police Department ever, why they basically have a non-enforcement policy of any of the issues that exist on New Hampshire Ave. I've never heard that. It's 5 years. I've never heard that. If you give me 5 minutes, I will walk out here, I will go score, and I will come back and I will light up on this call.
Please don't do that, but I appreciate what you're
And I'm saying that because it is such an obvious issue and everybody knows it. Like all everybody has done is recognize that that's an issue and that nobody wants to get involved with it. And the reason they don't get involved with it is because when somebody overdoses, they do it in Takoma Park instead of Prince George's County, or they do it in DC. I'm telling you, you have like body bags of people that are pulled out of the bushes around McDonald's and New Hampshire Ave in our neighborhood every year. Like, it's not a problem. It is an obvious problem. And I respect that all of you are trying to address it within the confines of your own roles, but like, it exists and it could be addressed. And the thing that shocks me about these calls is that is the embarrassment of riches of resources. There's DC, PG County, Takoma Park, Montgomery County, federal even. I mean, nobody wants to talk about it, but ICE was down here all last summer. There is an embarrassment of resources of law enforcement that could be pointed at an issue, and it is just ignored because the data points are divided in 3 to 5 different jurisdictions. So take a cluster view, talk to each other, and come up with a plan. That's all the community is asking for.
Mayor Cersei, you had your hand up.
Now, I just want to thank you, Alex. I'm going to be real transparent because I live in the Crossroads area and I understand how frustrating it can be when you have these cross-jurisdictional issues, and there has to be political will. And I'm just going to say it, and I'm just going to put it out there. The big thing that I think will be helpful for us in terms of moving the needle forward is the fact that there are some elections that are happening. And being able to perhaps engage with newer elected officials at different levels to really help us with moving the needle forward and getting some traction on these things, I think can go a long way. So what I just want to, in full transparency, I'm just going to say it. I am committed to making sure that we are building the necessary relationships to get some additional traction politically in Prince George's County as well as DC. I know that Councilmember Schlegel has worked in the past with the ANC. I've been able to be successful with some prior Prince George's county council members to kind of move some things forward, but I will say it has been hard more recently to do. So my hope is that with some fresh faces coming in, that we might be able to build upon through education of some of the newer faces that are coming in politically, the history that has occurred here, and to get some new eyes and some new willingness to move some things forward. So I just want to say that I hear you. I understand what everyone is saying. I know I live it alongside you, and I understand how frustrating it is. And so my hope, my expectation, is that with some new blood that's coming in all of these jurisdictions, that might open some doors that have been difficult to crack open within the last 4 to 5 years, I'll say.
Councilmember Schlegel, I know you've had your hand up for a while.
Yes, thank you. And thank you, Mayor Cersei, for talking about the political realm of this whole question. I want to thank the Pinecrest residents in particular, many of whom have been speaking up quite clearly on this call. And I just want to underscore the reality of the feelings that they're expressing and the experiences they've had, because I too live in Pinecrest and was formerly president of the community association here. One thing I wanted to mention is that I'm pledging that I'm going to work even harder to build the relationships with our two neighboring ANCs. We already have been getting to know Charlie Mayer, who's the 4BO4 representative, and kind of deliberately trying to work on a particular issue with the Walnut and Eastern intersection and try to start building a relationship through that work. And we found a lot of common ground on both sides, and had a nice backyard meeting that had about 25 people, an even mix of people from the DC side and the Wacko neighborhood. To the south of Charlie is Michael Cohen, and his district 4BO7 extends from Walnut all the way down to New Hampshire. So that's the relationship that we want to try to build. And if anybody on this call wants to be involved in trying to build those relationships, one particular thing we can do is try to show up at the monthly ANC meetings and just say, hi, here's who we are. We want to start getting to know you. Maybe we could work towards building a combined cross neighborhood event, maybe at the Lamont Riggs Rec Center or something, just to start to get to know people, because I think there are a lot of common concerns. And when people are heard from on both sides with the same requests, that can really help. The last little thing, I just wanted to circle back to Janae's question a while back. She was asking about the incident with the kids shooting the guns into the hillside on Kansas Lane. And she also asked about whether in real time there was notification, whether it was possible for Takoma Park to notify MPD and say, hey, this just happened. Can you do a lookout? I didn't hear the answer on that part.
Deputy Chief, you looked at it. I believe there was a real-time notification that went to them, and I believe we might have our dispatch supervisor on as well.
Yeah, we can pull that record up to see what communications were made and what time they were made. As the chief said, normally that is the practice, that if there is a live incident going on the border, whether it's Prince George's County or whether it's DC, that those jurisdictions are notified. In addition to that, our officers have capability on their portable radios to communicate with the other jurisdiction. So that typically does happen. But I'll have to look at the call card to know exactly what time those notifications were made.
Okay, thanks very much. I'll be if you can share anything with me that you come across, then I'll share it out with Pinecrest.
Definitely.
Dan on fourth, is that an old hand or?
Oh, it's a new hand.
Go ahead, sir.
Just a little follow up, guys. Roger, thanks for following up and committing to doing what you can. Mayor, thanks for doing saying the same thing. And I'm trying to read between the lines on a lot of what you said, but also to hope for some change on the DC side here coming up. I'm a little disappointed we don't have a lot of Montgomery County representation here right now. Maybe that can change on the next meeting, which I hope is soon. I also would like to hear the follow up on um, the the transaction that happened following the shooting on Kansas Lane the other day, and why the camera was put on 4th and Eastern and not on Kansas and Eastern. It's kind of is a little dumbfounding to me. Um, and also to reiterate a couple of things that everyone has said here. I appreciate the police. I appreciate everything you guys do. I couldn't imagine being in your shoes in these days with all of your limitations with kids and these juveniles who seem to be the same ones doing the same things over and over again, and you guys being limited on what you can do. And also that we are caught in the crossroads of a multi-jurisdictional area where it's like there's a little bit of passing of the buck, to kind of reiterate what Alex said, but also where your hands are also a little tied to based on laws in different states and municipalities and whatnot. So I appreciate what you do. I wouldn't want to be caught in your shoes trying to deal with all that. And I'm sure when these calls go off and you guys are all talking amongst yourself, it's like, man, we wish we could do more, but we just can't. And you want your citizens to understand that. And as the mayor said, we need to talk to more people in higher political positions, which I plan on doing as soon as I get off this phone call, to help out as much as I can, because I want this city to be as safe as possible. We've got the budget for it. We got the money for it. We got the minds for it. I'm really disappointed. There's only 15, 20 people on this call. This should be 100. And I know I represent 10 or 15 other people, on my block alone that don't have access to Zoom, or don't speak English 100%, but they've lived here longer than we have. They've got the same issues. They've had them historically, and they want something done. And I'm going to share everything I had on this conversation with them about that, and hopefully empower them to join us next time. But I've got to jump off and put my son to bed, but I appreciate everyone on this call, and I really hope that everyone has some takeaways here and we come back with some really powerful messaging next time we have this call. Thanks.
Thank you, Dan. I appreciate that. We are more than willing to have face-to-face meetings. I think this was a preferred Zoom meeting. We're also recording this meeting, so if you have anyone that was unable to attend that would like to review it, we'll make sure Kathy gets that out. Just a reference to Montgomery County not being here, because we were discussing this specific area of the city where Montgomery County doesn't have any direct nexus. We didn't invite them. We did have a crime summit last year where we had representatives from all the agencies here, as well as the Maryland State Police, the Montgomery County Police, and a bunch of other jurisdictions, Park Police here, to discuss how we work collaboratively across the city. But we did not invite Montgomery County specifically because they just don't have any. We have jurisdiction in this one part of the city, and the District of Columbia and Prince George's County have in this little triangle that we're discussing. But we've been more than happy to elaborate on our coordination with Montgomery County in general and other areas of the city.
Chief, would you be able to briefly mention Park Police and Crystal Lopez's role? Because I know we have Westmoreland Park, we have the woods at Kansas and Allegheny, we have the Sligo Mill Overlook Park, and we have the big woods behind the Jiffy Lube that are all MNCPPC land.
Absolutely. So there are many parks in the city of Takoma Park that are not city parks. They are Maryland National Capital Park and Planning Commission parks. And the primary jurisdiction, or the primary policing agency for those jurisdictions, is the Maryland National Capital Park Police. So for incidents that occur there, non-serious incidents, the park police handle them. If it's a serious incident, a homicide, so on and so forth, the Takoma Park Police handles that. But if you're having an issue, say at the Orchard Park, or you're having an issue with any park within the city of Takoma Park, the park police are that primary jurisdiction that would respond out, take a police report. If there are lighting issues, they will help you with those lighting issues, so on and so forth. I'm not sure if Officer Lopez is still the liaison, the community services liaison. But when this information is put out, as far as the video, we can share contact information for the respective agencies that operate in and around this area. But it just adds to the layer of different agencies that work in various capacities within this area. Um, Catherine Tunis, I see you have your hand up.
Hi, thanks. Just a quick question. When we're talking about the park police, we've had a couple of incidents on the Sligo Creek Trail recently of women being assaulted by men on bicycles and scooters. And I'm wondering, does that classify that people should call the Tacoma Park Police? Because the park police often are far away.
We always suggest when an incident, if you're aware that it's on park property, if it is a theft or something that's not in progress, you can call them. But if you feel like it is an emergency situation, we are going to be the first responding agency. We're probably going to be the closer agency. You can always contact us and say, hey, the situation is occurring in the park, and we can in turn contact park police to come out and take the report. So for an example of a sexual assault in progress or something to that effect, the quickest response time is going to be to call us and we respond and then we notify the park police. But if it's a situation where you lost your purse in the park or something like that, it's probably
Right.
best to contact them directly if that makes sense.
Okay, thank you.
Jean, is that a second hand?
Yeah, this
Yeah.
is an honest question because I'm trying to separate myth from reality. When I was a kid, my mother told me that if I did something wrong, if I broke the law, that the police would come for my parents. Is that true that parents can be prosecuted for crime that their children are doing, or are you able to have any interaction with the parents of? I mean, I realize it's kind of, you don't know, they haven't been convicted yet. Maybe they have been convicted, but I don't know. Are parents responsible for the crimes their children commit?
Jean, that's a really good question. I'll just, Captain Evans, if you just want to answer it.
That's a good question. For the most part, no, the parents will not be held responsible. I know DC is currently trying to have certain legislation to have parents responsible, sort of when we talk about curfews and repeat offenders, but those have not been put in place yet in Maryland. Like the chief said, we are facing difficulties when it comes to juveniles and prosecuting them, and we don't find out exactly what is going to happen to them. What we usually do, like the DC spoke about earlier, is when we have to take them in custody, we quickly have to release them to their parents or a guardian. So no, at this point in time, in the state of Maryland, no, parents are not held responsible for a child's crimes.
There used to be something, now I'm talking decades ago, called being out of parental control. I don't know if that's a thing or not anymore.
If you're talking about delinquency things, that's something totally different.
No, I'm talking about, yeah, well, delinquency or, yeah, I mean, truancy, and also, like you say, they get released to their parents, but their parents don't have any responsibility for what their kids did, if I understand you correctly. But I'm an old lady now, but this is back when I was late teens here in Montgomery County, and I had a few friends that got picked up for, quote, being out of parental control. They actually were from Chevy Chase, so they were not your typical juvenile delinquents, but there was some sort of responsibility. It was implied the parents had some kind of consequences would happen to parents if their kids did things when supposedly they should have been watching them.
So in matters like that, usually Department of Juvenile Services comes into play, and at the point in time, they maintain or evaluate if those parents should still have those kids or find other places for those kids to be. It's not something as a police agency, law enforcement, that we will do, but that's something that child delinquency will handle, and they'll evaluate the best place for that child to be.
You would be the first one to interact with the child, right? So somebody's taking them home or calling their parents to come pick them up, but that's where it ends. There's no consequences for the parent, even counseling the parents, or I mean, if if I go off to work, I don't have a teenager anymore, but if I have a teenager and they just were running amok and I have no idea what they're up to, I have no responsibility or consequences for me for not making sure they were being supervised.
Now, your question varies. So we can have child delinquency. So for, let me give you an example. If someone calls and say there's a kid left at home by herself, and we find that they're not at the age that they can be left at home by herself, yes, we will take custody of the child, call child services, and they will evaluate it and take it from there. So in that instance, they would be held accountable. But I think the way you first phrase your question is, if they committed a crime, would they be held liable? So that's two different things, parsing two different things. Does that make sense?
It makes sense. I mean, it seems like the solution for juvenile crime falls into a black hole. You can't do it. The parents don't have to do it. And here we are.
Yeah,
So
Gene, I think one of the biggest things we deal with is the lack of resources for our youth, the lack of parenting in general. We have parents that don't know how to be parents, but we also don't have outlets for some of our youth to do other things. I mean, we always have to take a holistic view of addressing the root causes of crime. And the root causes of crime sometimes are the inability to have other outlets, the lack of education, the lack of food, the lack of jobs, all of these things. So if we do not take a holistic approach on what is causing our youth to commit these crimes, they're going to continue to do so. And that's just not youth, that's adults as well. So that's really, really important. I think, when we had a reimagined public safety task force here in the city in 2021. And they also looked holistically at the root causes of crime, the lack of, education, the lack of recreation, all of these things. So I think they play a big part. But to your original question, yes, parents are not parenting their kids. They don't know how to be parents. So developing resources for whether it be young parents or any parents to become parents and handle their kids is critically important. Because if there's no structure and there's no resources available to these children, they're going to go out and do nefarious things. So, it's a cycle that we're dealing with, but it's really important if we're going to address this is that we start looking at those root causes.
Okay. Thank you.
Absolutely.
I was just about to say the Chiefs line and go the holistic approach, but he beat me to it.
I don't see any more hands up at this point. I don't know if anyone from the other jurisdictions. I think Councilmember has his hand up. Go ahead.
Thanks. I just I don't know how close we are to wrapping up, but this will be my last jumping in. I want to thank everybody who has joined us from these professional departments, and I want to acknowledge that we've talked a lot about youth and juvenile delinquency, and that there's a lot of compassion and love also felt in our neighborhoods for these kids and these particular kids who are almost known by sight to a number of people. And so the feeling of a lack of control is not a binary. It doesn't mean a lack of care or concern for these young people. I wanted to just share on that topic really quick that as a DC teacher, I undergo a training every year. And under DC law, it seems that if I found out that a child had been involved in an incident like firing a gun off or something, I would be obligated to report to Child Protective Services that I had a concern about neglect, because we're required by law to report abuse or neglect. So I don't know how that might factor in terms of what law enforcement people might do.
Yeah, I mean, I think it goes to what Captain Seven said earlier. That would more be on the parental supervision, whether or not that child should be within the supervision of that parent, not necessarily holding the parent accountable for the actions of the individual, if that makes any sense.
But
Sorry, my husband,
I got,
I'm not asking again, but my husband has something to ask.
Okay, we're coming on up on about 5 more minutes. So Gene, we'll go ahead and
okay,
take your husband's question and then open it up for a couple more, and then we're
this should be pretty quick. You're talking about situations with juveniles and the fact that there's a lot of individual incidents. Is there anybody keeping systematic data on, kind of incidents mapped to the age of the juvenile and how that response is, what happened afterwards? Is there any systematic looking at this? I mean, and it would be interesting across the jurisdiction. So you could see the interaction across jurisdictions. You could see the efficacy of particular behaviors. I don't want to lock the kids up, but I want it to stop. So, like you say, in terms of dealing with a holistic approach, first thing you need to do is understand what's going on. So I'm
yeah, I
just
mean,
curious.
any arrest of any individual, whether juvenile or adult, is going to be categorized. I think what would be important is to, as you said, and there are organizations outside of police department that are taking this data and saying, okay, I'm just throwing this out, there's been an increase in juveniles arrested for robbery in this particular area, or what are the cause and effect of what's causing an increase or decrease, or so on and so forth, and providing resources. I think I was watching a news article about a particular area of DC that used to have a lot of youth outreach programs. There was a rec center that was discussed, and it was around Jackson Reed High School. And now those resources are no longer available. So these kids no longer have an outlet to do positive things. But to your point, it is critical that this data is collected. So if you can't just say, hey, there's a problem without having data to support that there is a problem. If that makes
It'd
sense.
also be useful to, since what I'm hearing is a lot of these youths are not arrested. I would say the vast majority. It'd be nice to even have data on time and place and that type of thing. You could keep the youth's name confidential, obviously, but understanding the patterns and again, longitudinally, if, a rec center actually was in the area, did it make a difference? Or is it just we're all saying that's common sense?
You're spot on. I agree 100%. Um, I don't know, is there anyone from DC, PG, or Metro that I know a lot of the questions were directed at us, but is there anything you want to circle back on that was asked that needs some clarity? I know the McDonald's was mentioned, LT, if you want to
Sure,
circle back on that.
just on the McDonald's. We actually do have a poll camera up there, and our special assignment team has been working closely with DC. And we had an apartment on the PG side that was conducting a lot of this drug activity, and we were able to shut that down. And we're still continuing to work with DC. So we're well aware of the problems at McDonald's. It's just a ongoing thing that takes time because in the short term, we're able to get patrol units out there, overtime units, and then they disperse and it'll clear out while we're there. And then we leave and it comes back. So the long-term approach is having long-term investigations and it just takes time. But just so everyone knows, we are working on it.
DC or Metro, you want to follow up on any questions or comments with me?
The only thing I want to just add, and just to round it out for us, and I believe someone said earlier that we weren't doing anything or that we're trying to skirt the issue. We actually have a dedicated safe passage during the school year with Coolidge High School. And what that looks like is we have a lieutenant, a sergeant, typically 7 to 10 police officers working that corridor up to Takoma and the area around that area. We call that safe passage. It is something that we do. It's built into our deployment, our daily deployment during the school year. So we do take the juvenile crime serious, and at times we do make arrests, and we have made arrests. As far as publicizing their information, I can't think of a scenario where I probably wouldn't be in a heap of trouble for publicizing a juvenile's arrest information, even if we withheld the name, because that information could be somehow linked back to that juvenile. We're very careful and secretive, I guess, about juvenile arrests. And it's a very confidential court system, shall we say. I can't even walk in to a juvenile court proceeding, and I'm sure that's similar in many other jurisdictions. So trying to keep track of juvenile arrests and things like that, for us, that would be almost an impossible feat, especially to share it publicly.
Commander Donald, did you have any?
Yeah, just one thing, Chief Duvall, you talked about it earlier, but biggest thing is see something, say something. I know, there's some frustration on the call, but if individuals see some crime in progress, do not hesitate to call us. Let us come figure it out. We're gonna respond, whether it's across the border or not across the border. We'll stop that individual. We can defer that back to the original law enforcement agency that, that jurisdiction is on. But at the end of the day, we're gonna do an investigation and follow up on it. But at the end of the day, do not hesitate to call the police. That's what we are here for. Let us come, figure it out. So if you see something, do say something.
Appreciate it. I didn't mention, but I may have mentioned we have our code enforcement supervisor, Rick Baravecchia here. He didn't touch on it, but there's a lot of code enforcement issues that he's addressing. We didn't get any questions, but if you have any follow-up questions for him, I think most of you know how to contact him. And Dwayne, I appreciate you joining the call. I wanted to give some last words to the council member or the mayor if they have any parting words.
Yes, I just want to say thank you all so much to the residents. Thank you so much for sharing what you see. It helps us to better understand how we can identify approaches to serve you better. I want to thank every single one of our partners that's on this call. Um, this is something that doesn't just happen naturally. It happens through partnership across jurisdictions. The fact that our police department has worked with and continues to work with Prince George's County and the DC Police Department is the reason why we're able to have uh, candid conversations like this around neighborhood specific concerns. I just ask for you all. I know that patience is something that it's worn thin, but I do ask for your partnership as we all continue to work together to try to solve the issues that are plaguing your neighborhood. And definitely look forward to working with each and every one of you. Don't be shocked if I ask you to send those emails and write those letters so that we can try to get some more attention on this area and get some more resources and enforcement, and particularly as it relates to the cross jurisdictional needs and the MOU.
Thank you, Mayor. Council member?
Yeah, I already expressed my thanks to everybody from the law enforcement agencies, and I appreciate your being here, Mayor. Thanks to the residents for sharing the on the ground experiences. I did want to just thank Mr. Baravecchia too, because I know that you've taken on a lot of calls related to the area, particularly along Sligo Mill Road. And I went up there this morning to just check out the area, and it was good to see that in the area down towards behind Jiffy Lube where the road was reconstructed, I did not see litter in sight along there. I noticed a new fence that had gone up, I believe, behind the Advanced Auto Parts. It appeared to be new. There weren't any holes in it. I didn't see evidence of dumping. I know it's the summer, but I know that every inch of that area initially, perhaps it was the case that code enforcement was observing from the New Hampshire side, but I've noted that you've been paying attention from the Sligo Mill side to those commercial properties, and I much appreciate it.
You're welcome. All right, we are at 9:04. So I greatly appreciate everyone joining. If anyone on the call has any follow-up questions, I know everyone should have Captain Evans' contact information. If not, when Kathy puts out the information with this recording, we'll make sure to put the contact information for all of the respective law enforcement commanders that are here if you want to reach out to them with individual questions. So we should have this video up, hopefully up in the next couple of days, as well as the accompanying PowerPoint and other information. So thank you very much and enjoy your evening.
Night, thank you.
where the chat went.